The Castlevania series is one with plenty of ups and plenty of downs. However, those ups go higher than the tallest turrets of the spookiest castles you ever saw. And if you've already seen my almost 2-hour-long documentary based on the franchise, you will not only know this, but you will also know just how much I adore this series. Before going ahead, a massive thank you goes out to all of you people out there for watching that video. It brought in so many more subscribers to the channel that continue to watch the complete history series to this day. And on top of that, it also got the attention of Konami. Turns out, they were big fans too, and a few weeks back they officially informed me of gaming's worst kept secret, the Castlevania Advance collection, a brand new retro collection, not to be confused with the more hardcore, heavy and difficult Castlevania games of yore that included the more retro NES and SNES games, plus a few extra which again I mentioned in that very video. But with that collection out of the way, this new collection is going to be bringing with it 3 of the very best games in the series, the Game Boy Advance games, as well as Dracula X for the Super Nintendo. Some of the most underrated games from the franchise that many people believe are the very best in the series. Yes, even better than Symphony of the Night. And get this, it's all being done by legendary port house M2. To cut a long story short, if your retro collection or port has a logo like this flash up when you turn it on, then it's pretty much already guaranteed to be perfection, and in some cases even better than the original games. Which is why when Konami asked me if I wanted to take a look at this collection and take a deeper dive into these particular games that I've already reviewed, games that all of you guys have been telling me how much you like, all found in a collection that's already doing very well on the review scores, and they were going to be paying me for the privilege, I said yes. Go on then, I'll take a look at your new collection of games that I've already given high praise to and have already been getting fantastic reviews from practically every single review site going. Where do I sign? So, with that little introduction out of the way, let's get the technicals out of the way. Yes, this is a sponsored video, so hashtag ad goes up there. I'm here to tell you guys that this collection is out right now. This collection is around about the £16 mark to $20 mark, depending on where you live, and it's available for all major consoles, that being all of the Xboxes, so Xbox One, S, X, Series X, all of that sort of stuff. You got it on PlayStation 4, PlayStation 5, and of course the Nintendo Switch. So, let's get on with it. Guys, it's time to go back to the beginning once again, but this time we're going to be taking a deeper dive into why this particular series of games is so important in Castlevania, the Advance Collection history. Welcome to Slope's Game Room. The year is 1997 and Koji Igarashi has just gone and unleashed the super impressive Symphony of the Night PlayStation 1 game, and the world wasn't exactly clamoring to get their hands on it. Pretty crazy stuff, right? I mean, this is Symphony of the Night, one of the most groundbreaking and influential games ever made. Why weren't people interested? Well, the answer's simple. It was 1997. It may not have sold bucket loads back then, but look what it was going up against. Tekken 3, Final Fantasy 7, Gran Turismo, Diddy Kong Racing, Postal, Star Fox 64, Klonoa, Oddworld, Crash 2, MDK, Extreme G, Fighting Force, Turok, Doom 64, Carmageddon, GoldenEye and Grand Theft Auto. Yes, it was an amazing year for games, but besides all of the competition, it was a beautifully created, pixel-heavy 2D game when the majority of the Western world at least wanted nothing but harsh polygon-filled heavy games. Yes, it's easy to go back and facepalm your younger self into thinking that those polygon-heavy games looked better than Symphony of the Night, but for every single person out there that did choose one of those polygon-heavy games over Symphony of the Night, it didn't matter because those Symphony of the Night fans were hardcore and very vocal, and it's because of those fans that the series changed from here on out. After the release of this game, Konami knew that they had to take two new paths for the series moving forward. They had to create a polygon-heavy 3D adventure game, and they of course needed to please this new dedicated 2D fan base that were craving a new game in the style of Symphony of the Night. And Nintendo allowed them to do that very thing on the N64 and of course on the Game Boy Advance. Castlevania Circle of the Moon was a launch title for Nintendo's latest handheld, the GBA, and is arguably not only the best of Nintendo's launch titles, but more importantly, the most impressive of the bunch. And guys, let me tell you, Castlevania was up against it with 24 games released spread across the regions at launch. Nintendo rarely had third-party developers put out games as launch titles on their systems, and yet here we are. For the first time in the company's life, they had it in spades, and for a good, simple reason. Whilst most companies, including Nintendo themselves, simply showed off what the system could do by simply porting, or should I say gimping, older games onto the system with the likes of Earthworm Jim, Pitfall, Rayman and of course Mario, Konami decided to do something a little bit different. Now of course Konami could have just done the exact same thing. They had some incredible titles to choose from, most notably Bloodlines and Super Castlevania 4. But they didn't. Circle of the Moon was the game that Konami went for, and again, it was for a very good reason. That reason being Symphony of the Night. That game that didn't exactly sell all that well, that was the reason. Fans out there were so vocal that they wanted a follow-up in the style of Symphony of the Night, and Konami gave them that game. Circle of the Moon was that game, the first true 2D game, besides Legends, that was simply worked on at the same time as Symphony, to be made after Iga's masterpiece, and it shows. Konami thankfully didn't simply just shoehorn an older game onto the newer system, but instead they decided to make a whole new Castlevania game from scratch. Yes, from scratch. Circle of the Moon may not be the very best game in the franchise, we will get to that one shortly, and yes, that game may just be a part of this collection, but look what it's going up against. It takes the all-important elements of what makes games like Symphony of the Night so good, and unlike the majority of the games found in this franchise, it doesn't reuse any of its sprites or its assets. Konami saw what the new console was capable of and created a game that could stand toe-to-toe with the 16-bit's best games, but made in this all-new Metroidvania-esque style for a system that wasn't even finished yet. And it's because of this that many people out there believe that Circle of the Moon, or just simply Castlevania as it was known in the UK, was the very best launch title for one of the very best handhelds ever created. It's a solid game that involved Dracula once again waking from his slumber and demolishing the floor that you stand upon, resulting in you having to tirelessly make your way back up to the top in true Castlevania fashion to fight him, before you realise, and spoiler warning here, that was all just the beginning of the game. In my original non-sponsored Castlevania history video, I said that this particular game was one of my favourites in the entire franchise, and obviously I still stand by that. Circle of the Moon may not have been created by Iga himself, as he was off doing other things, but instead this game was created by Konami Computer Entertainment Kobe, or simply KCEK, but don't let that put you off. The game is still fantastic and features possibly the very best castle in the entire series. Excellent boss battles, enemies, and more importantly, enemy placement, and although it may not be part of the mainline Castlevania timeline story-wise, it's still completely worth trying, not just because it is a good game, but also because of its insane amounts of variety. What makes this game unique, besides its storyline not involving the Belmont family at all, is the card system found in the game. 20 unique cards, 10 from Roman gods and 10 from Greek gods. These are obtained randomly throughout the game as enemies drop them and require you to choose one from each set, giving you 100 possible variations, which in turn gives your character new abilities that will likely make each playthrough completely different. Annoyingly, as this was released on the single-screened Game Boy Advance system, these abilities were very experimental and are virtually impossible to work out unless you complete complete the game hundreds of times. Now, of course, this could all be fixed if it was released on some kind of, I don't know, CastleVania Advance collection. And that's exactly what this collection does. The Advanced Collection includes an encyclopedia that shows off exactly what each of these combinations can do, and it's a lifesaver. Now, of course, many will argue that that's cheating. It's all about the experimentation and the exploring and the finding of these cards, and to those people I say, fair play. Don't use it then. The choice is yours. If you don't want to use it, you don't have to. You can make the audio as standard as it ever was in the options menu, or of course, you can seriously advance it. You don't need to see your replays, use save states, change the wallpaper, or stretch the screen. Actually, I'm with those guys on this one. It's all about pixel perfection. As stated, the choice is yours. The guys over at scrub that. The legends over at M2 did an incredible job, as they literally always do, at porting these games. And as you have come to expect, all of these little extras that they added are all optional. It really does make these versions of the games, in my opinion, the very best way to play them. Yes, even beating the original cartridge on the original handheld. Remember when I said that the game really only got the love it deserved retrospectively? Well, that would be because the original Game Boy Advance didn't have a backlight, and this original game was created by a team that had no idea that that was going to be the case, resulting in a stunning game that's typically dark and dingy, but was virtually impossible to see unless you was camping out on the sun itself. Thankfully, you didn't have to put up with those issues on later Game Boy Advances, of course, and you're definitely not going to have to put up with those issues now. With M2 on the case, it arguably looks better than it ever has. But this is 2021. What do you think Konami did to fix those issues in the follow-up, Harmony of Dissonance, released almost 20 years ago in 2002? They brought Iga back, baby, and he brought some friends along with him. Ayami Kojima, the legendary artist who worked on the already mentioned Symphony of the Night, came along for the ride, and between them, they wanted to create yet another classic 2D Castlevania game, taking plenty more of those addictive maze-like level-up systems that Symphony championed so well in what many will argue is the first true sequel. For me, it's Circle of the Moon, but hey, argue amongst yourselves down below. Whereas Circle was more of a spin-off story-wise, Harmony was a lot more focused on continuing the timeline that was very quickly being shaped by Iga himself. And it shows. By this point, I think it's fair to say that Konami had aced the Castlevania formula. Big castles, lots of exploration, experimentation, and memorable jaw-dropping bosses are obviously found throughout this game. More often than not, if Symphony of the Night isn't your favourite, or one of the DS games isn't your favourite, it's going to be Harmony of Dissonance or Aria of Sorrow. Again, argue amongst yourselves down below. The Game Boy Advance games are that good, and Harmony of Dissonance is that good. Yes, it has an almost luminous colour scheme due to the no backlight features of the original GBA, but for me, that adds to the uniqueness of this title, and most importantly, doesn't take away from its gameplay. It's one of the most unique looking games in the system's history, besides Dracula Kid, I suppose, and the game has some insane set pieces that you will be thinking about long after the game is over. The classic fighting mechanics are a lot more standardized here too, and the addition of spellbooks in place of the magic card system gives the player plenty of opportunities to mix up the gameplay and explore the castle. And my god, is that castle fun to explore when you get to grips with the dash move that will become an addiction soon after playing. And it won't be long before you smash your way into a new room, destroying everything in sight whilst your friends look in awe as you finally play this game on the big screen. Harmony of Dissonance was truly the return of Igavania, but this wasn't enough. Whilst this was still in development right towards the end, well, he got to work on Aria of Sorrow, a futuristic Castlevania game. Now, upon hearing a futuristic Castlevania game, you may be put off. You know, that doesn't exactly sound all that good, does it? But in actual fact, it is. After playing through these games again, you can see why so many people think that this is the very best game in the series. Its futuristic setting allows the game to get around that Game Boy Advance dark screen. The music is some of the best in the entire series, period, thanks to them bringing back Mashiru Yamane, and the gameplay is simply Castlevania perfection, with this game's new addition being the ability to acquire over 100 souls, depending on the type of enemy that you was going to be defeating. Once acquired, you can then equip them and use them, giving you different abilities throughout your time with the game, making the playthrough feel different each time you play it. Plus, this game is full of arguably the best looking bosses on the entire system. And of course, as stated earlier, all of those new quality of life features that I previously mentioned can be found on all of these games. And in this one, they are extra helpful, showing off what you collected along the way as you play the game. As stated, this video is sponsored, so there's no point me reviewing this, although I already have reviewed it. And it's not going to take you guys too long to find 100 other review sites and videos singing this game's praises. It really is that good. And upon completion, Iga had this to say. In today's world, if you try to release a 2D game on something like the PlayStation 2, it's gonna get lower ratings compared with 3D titles. The hardcore fans still love 2D, but to the general market, it's seen as something lesser than 3D, unfortunately. Symphony of the Night was a PlayStation game, and many wanted to see a sequel for the PlayStation 2, but it turns out that making a 2D game for the PlayStation 2 is more difficult than you might think. For the Game Boy Advance, on the other hand, 2D is the standard assumption, and graphically, it has similar capabilities to the Super Famicom, and the scale of the development isn't too unwieldy. It's nice because a game released on the Game Boy Advance gets reviews and appreciated fairly as a 2D game. So yeah, taking all that into account, I can't imagine making a 2D game on a different system, and I love 2D games personally. And finally, this leaves us with the black sheep of the collection. If having the entire Game Boy Advance Castlevania collection wasn't enough for you, this set also includes Dracula X, or to call it by its European name, Vampire's Kiss. Oh, and by the way, you can actually change up the region on all of these games between American, Japanese and European, which is nice, as Vampire's Kiss isn't the only game that has a change up like this. Now, Dracula X, yeah, this one is an odd one. I already stated what many people believe is the best in the series, and honestly, that opinion can vary from person to person. If you ask Quang, the guy who actually lent me this huge Castlevania collection, probably the biggest on the planet, the answer is Rondo of Blood, one of the main games that inspired Symphony of the Night, that was released on the PC Engine's Super CD-ROM, and that's a pretty common opinion. Dracula X is also the result of that game, as it's kind of a port, but not really, featuring the more classic style with redesigned levels and altered gameplay elements, which honestly actually changes up the more Igavania style of this collection, and because of that, it's definitely worth a playthrough simply just to see how different the games were before and after Symphony of the Night. I absolutely adore the Castlevania franchise. I think that goes without saying. And this new budget title includes several of many people's favourites from the franchise, and it's bundled in a way that makes it not only arguably the very best way to play these titles, but it's also a rather lovely collector's piece too, with stunning concept artwork from the games and a soundtrack for each that allow you to create custom playlists too. Seriously, I wish this game came out before I made my video, because it would have made it a hell of a lot easier to make. As stated, this is a sponsored video, but thankfully it's a sponsored video based on a franchise that you guys already know that I like, and it's based on a collection that's already out, getting nothing but great reviews so far, as it's full of games that are widely admired. Obviously, I wasn't going to say no. If you're a fan of Castlevania games, this is an absolute must. If you're a fan of Metroidvania, it's a must. But best of all, if you're a fan of Symphony of the Night and you want to see how Iga continued on with the franchise and in the eyes of many actually improved upon it, controversial, I know, then slapping down £16 or $20 is an absolute steal. Thanks for checking out the video, guys, and hopefully I'll see you all next time.